Good day, folks. Hey, this is Dr. Terry and Tom, and we are here from the Metaphysical Mysteries. And we're celebrating our 50th episode. And so we picked the best of the best psychic mediums. That category is what we're talking about today. And one of the two that we picked is with us here, Taffeny Hicks from the great state of Kentucky, or should I say Commonwealth, and Eastern Kentucky. Different than Western, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so we're very happy to have you here, and we've had you before, and accolades have come in since your first appearance, and so we're real happy to have you. And for the listeners, what the heck are we doing here? What's special about this? Well, what's special is, we get a chance to have readings from lots of different psychic mediums by doing the show, and it's kind of a way we see whether they got their act together or not. Well, and I always kind of say that I have a rating system, kind of like I tell them, if you get a psychic mediums at the 70 percentile, you've got a good one. But if you get somebody at the 90th percentile or higher, you've got extraordinary. Well, we wouldn't bring anything less than extraordinary here. So Daphne's above that 90 percentile in our illustrious opinion. And so we really want to try to learn from her, because people ask all the time, well, how do psychics do this? I mean, how do they talk to dead folks? How do they talk to angels? How do they talk to guides? What's the Akashic records? And, there's a whole preparatory process as well. So we're going to break this up into little parts. And so hopefully you guys can follow along out there. So if you're practicing or you're brand new at it or want to learn, then maybe this will have some. And maybe for those of you who are already doing it, this will reinforce what you're doing, that these folks that are really good at it are doing a very similar thing as you. So, Tom, you have any intro stuff to start with?
Man, I can just tell the audience, we've worked with Taffeny now multiple years, and it's always an amazing time when she gets into her place where she starts feeding information dead on all the time. So looking forward to today and see where we end up.
Fantastic. Well, welcome.
Thank you so much. Wow. Yeah. Thank you.
Tell us how you get ready for one of these things.
Well, I usually have a very basic protocol. It's not anything fancy or high maintenance or complicated, because I was born this way. So it's fairly easy. Usually every morning when I go in my office, I always burn dragon's blood to clear the vibrations and the energies.
Because I'm going to stop you and tell everybody that's listening to dragon's blood, it sounds like something scary out of the Middle Ages. Dragon's blood is simply an incense, and they put that name to it. It smells excellent. I have a lot of it myself. And that's the one it's my go-to. But dragon's blood is not real dragon's blood, people. This is just an incense that goes through the house, makes you feel good and all that, and smells really nice. So go ahead.
Thank you for that. Yeah, it's a wonderful incense. And the reason why I use it is supposedly it's the kind of the big guy, right? It's the one that clears darker energies, demonic, satanics, just things like that. So when you use it, you're really busting out all that energy. And so I normally burn that every morning. I always anoint myself with sacred oil. It just raises my vibrations, because frankincense is in the sacred oil mix. And so it's the highest spiritual frequency of the oils. So I always anoint myself, and then I go into just a prayer. It's a pretty basic prayer. I always ground myself into the earth, especially in the mornings, because we've been out of our body at night, and we tend to astral travel, right? And so when you ask to be grounded, sometimes you can feel yourself coming back into your body fully. And then I always ask to be connected to the God consciousness and aligned and balanced. And then I set up my spiritual parameters, my white light of protection, so that only the highest truth, I always ask for the highest truth and the highest light to come through for the person that I'm channeling for. And then I ask that their spirit team comes in. And really that's it. It's so easy. I think connecting with the spirit world is so simple, really, and it's very basic. And actually, from what I just learned this week, from a teacher, and I did not know this. I saw this man teaching and lecturing, and he said that three things have to align in our brains: the frontal lobes, the pineal in the middle, and the medulla, the reptilian part of the brain in the back, the brainstem. And once we get those three things in harmony and in sync, then the energies can come through, but they have to stay balanced.
Yeah.
And I've never been taught that before.
And they've done science on that, where they put people in the caps and so forth, and they can see the different parts of the brain, particularly in the back, and of course the pineal and so forth. So I think that lines up with the science that we're aware of. But
Okay.
My question is, okay, so you're getting ready on your side. How do you prepare a sitter? And for the listeners, a sitter is somebody who's actually paying for a reading. They're asking for data. They don't have to be paying. They can just be sitting there. But
Okay.
how do you prep them? What do you tell them to do?
Well, usually in all of my first time readings, I will explain to them a few things that I feel are extremely important to me and for them to understand. Number one, I explain to them that I've called in their spirit team, and that from what the angels call me, they call me the speakerphone. The spirit world calls me the microphone. And I tell them I don't run the show and I'm not in charge. Your spirit team is. And God is with us, and God is around us. And so that's what I trust, because the spirit team, they come through every single time, and they always know what we need to hear. I like to go into every session cold, which means I don't want to know anything. Right. Because, the way I look at my abilities here is I believe that this is something that I came in to do for a specific purpose, to help humanity. And as a double Virgo, I'm always working on myself to try to improve those abilities so that I can help greater, deeper, wider. And so I want the confirmation to come through as much as my client does. And
Right.
That's really important to me.
Evidentiary mediumship. So give me some evidence that
exactly
that there's no way I could possibly know. It's something that only
right.
the sitter would know. That kind of
right.
thing.
And I tell their spirit team that sometimes if they're giving us a little bit vague answers, I'll kind of dive in and go, no, I want specifics here. I want to show this to them. And I think that that's extremely important also, because it gives a person believability.
Right.
And not to go down the rabbit hole of religion versus spirituality, and, we just got to have faith and believe in this presence that loves us, but life is so hard. And, I won't try to put all those pieces together today, but to me, it proves the other side, because they say things. I try to say things exactly word for word as they say them, because I don't know their lingo and their language, but the person that I'm reading does. And so people will say to me, oh my gosh, Taffeny, my grandmother, that's my grandmother, or my father would have totally said that to me, or used that language. And so the provability and the believability is extremely important. And I feel like that every person that I read, it's my job to connect them to their spirit team and bring through other densities to give them hope and faith and belief and understanding that it's not really a complicated matter, and that we really are surrounded, right?
Yeah.
So I kind of explain a little bit of that to them. And I also tell them two other important things. I cannot predict your free will. I can't. Nobody can. That's something God gives us. I tell them I can tell you the trajectory you're going down unless you make a change. I can tell you your past lives. I can tell you things that have happened. I can tell you your soul contract and your destiny points that they're showing me, but I can't predict your free will. That's between you and God. And the other thing that I always tell my clients is, you know, I'm on your team. I'm in your corner. I don't have any judgment. That's not my business. It's not my place. And everything that I channel is confidential, and I won't remember it tomorrow anyway, because what comes through my brain and out my mouth, that information belongs to my client and their spirit team. And my job is to love them, support them, and be the speakerphone and bring through as much information as I can.
So when we talk about making this connection, you know, we talk about the senses that everybody has, and then, you know, the five senses, and then the sixth sense is kind of the one that kind of helps pull all that together, because that's how they communicate with us, is through our senses. You want to go through a little bit how that works?
Sure. So I'll start with the clairvoyance, the gift of sight, and how that can be used, and how I use that is I see mostly with my third eye. When I was a child, I could actually see with my physical eyes, and it scared me so bad I kind of shut that down, and a lot of people do that.
Yep.
So yeah, so when I see with my physical eyes, you know, I see angels, and sometimes I see sparkles, or I'll see outlines of beings or energies. And clairvoyance can also be dreams, prophetic dreams.
Right.
You know, for instance, my sweet new granddaughter that I had this year, I'll try not to cry. She came to me twice in a dream. She came to my mother before my mother passed. She came to my stepmother, and she came to one other great grandmother. So she made her presence known all the way around the family.
Yeah, I guess
And so prophetic dreams can happen. They can be in symbols, or they can be actual. So that's clairvoyance. And I always use that. All of my gifts are always on, functioning together all the time in harmony.
Right.
And then there's clairaudient, which is the gift of hearing. And that can be heard by an outside voice, or it can be in our minds, which most of the time, from what I understand, that's how people hear. And it can be in our own voice, or it can be in another person's voice that you will hear. And I think I told you the last time we were talking that sometimes whenever I go into sessions and I've got someone from a different ethnic background, and one of their ancestors comes through, sometimes they're speaking Italian or they're speaking French, and I'm like, no, I don't understand that. You have to speak English. So sometimes we actually hear their language, their native language. So that's clairaudient. And then there's claircognizant, which, in my opinion, I think I told you guys that I think that's one of the most powerful gifts to have, because it can't really be altered. And you can second guess it, but when it comes through, it's usually so powerful. And that's the gift of just knowing. You just absolutely know. And I would say to the listeners, if you're going to pray or work on one, that would be a really great one to have. Claircognizance is powerful for a lot of reasons, but I think the most important reason is that's just the one you can't really manipulate, or that it can't be manipulated from outside sources.
I think
right?
It's almost them directly putting a message in
Yes.
your head saying, this is it. And
Yes.
you know it, you know, so
Right.
I get that. I obviously use that a lot myself.
Right.
So
And can I talk about two different parts of the claircognizance that
sure.
I feel like is the listeners really need to know? Because, and I won't go down the rabbit hole on this one either. I could talk for hours, but because we're in a major grid shift, magnetic grid shift on the planet, we're going from the flower of life grid, the 3D grid structure, where our consciousness was very suppressed. And we're going to the crystalline spiral grid, where we're going to 4 and 5D consciousness. Okay. And I won't go into how that affects humanity, but if you ever want to do another podcast, I would be happy to talk about it, because this is a really powerful transition right now. And from what the angels tell me, the new grid will actually be locked in place April of next year when we go through the gateway of Aquarius into the new age. And it's just a very powerful time. A lot of people are struggling a little bit with the shift, but two of the things that I want to talk about with the claircognizance, I think, is being affected by the new grid. And I'm saying this to the listeners and you guys because I've seen the claircognizance shift in my readings and with my abilities. So I'm learning a little bit more. So we know that claircognizance is telepathy is a form of that, right? Is mind to mind connection and understanding. And of course, we've had a lot of that even in the 3D grid structure. But one of the things that I experienced, and you guys may have already had this happen to you, this is not common for me, is a couple of weeks ago, I got a complete download. And I shook for about 10 hours. And, you know, in reading, sometimes the person's spirit team will just kind of put things in my brain, and then I'll know it. And then I have to figure out the words to describe what they just put in there, right? So that's more telepathy, which is great. But the downloads are very different. And what the angels have explained to me is those downloads actually change our DNA. And they're changing how those three parts of our brain are connecting. So it should be actually improving those connections. Okay. So I just kind of wanted to say that. My spirit team actually told me today that was an important thing for the listeners to hear, because they may start getting these downloads, but not understanding what's happening. Okay. Right. So it's totally normal. And then the last gift is the clairsentience. And of course I use that, and that's sensing and feeling. And I will tell you, I think sensing and feeling is super important with all of the gifts, because it gives us a level of understanding and compassion for the other person. And I use that gift along with the others in something that I call profiling. I don't know any other word. The angels told me to use that word. So sometimes when I'm in a reading, I can stick my head in another person's head, or I can step in their energy field, and I can tell you exactly what they're thinking and what they're feeling. And sometimes I just close my eyes and then I just let it all start flowing through. Now, why is that important? Well, number one, it's important because I think it helps me scan a person if there's physiological issues. Sometimes my clients will say to me, Taff, scan me. So I step in their energy field and I run a scan. Number two, I have people that are in relationship crisis, whether it be intimate or just family or friends, and they want to know what the real truth is, or what does this person really feel, or what are this person dealing with. And so it's not any kind of breach of privacy. It is an understanding of what that person is thinking and feeling, so that the person that I'm reading can understand and then make a little bit better decisions on how to handle that situation. Gotcha. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Sure, it does. And I think, you know, the other thing, when you get some of those more, almost like intimate details, people always ask this, so I'll just throw it out there because, you know, the listeners do ask, is are you of the opinion that you should tell everything that comes through, or should you hold certain things back? You know, like say there was going to be a death, or there's going to be a divergence in a family that's going to be significant, you know, whether that's, I don't know, a death or a divorce or some in a car crash. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? And there's going to be the negative news. Is that something that you tell them, or do you prep them for it before you tell them? How do you handle that?
Actually, both. And so we can talk about that for a minute. So usually I do tell my clients, my first time reads, that because I've called in your spirit team and because I've asked them to just bring through the message, I'm going to tell you everything they say. Okay. Because that's how much I trust a person's spirit team.
Right.
Love is love is love is love. And I know that because they're in control, whatever comes through, that person needs to hear. And can I share just a tiny brief story about that? Okay. So I don't remember who I read, and I don't remember what comes through my brain and out my mouth. And like I said, I believe that information is between that person and their spirit team. So it's not my business. So I don't try to remember. I had a client call me, and I've been reading 23 years. And she called me and she said, I'd like to make an appointment. And we got it scheduled. And she said, Taffeny, I owe you an apology. And I said, for what? And she said, well, you've read me one other time. And she said, when I got off the phone with you, I was furious. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry if I hurt you or if I did something wrong. And she said, no, you didn't. She said, let me tell you what happened. She said, when you read me the first time, the only time you've ever read me, she said, you told me that my angel said my mother was going to pass from lung cancer in 2 years, that in 6 months she would get sick and she would be gone in 2 years. And she said, my mother is my best friend. And she said, I was devastated and I was angry. And she said, I swore to God I would never read with you again. And she said, Taffeny, 6 months later, my mom came down with lung cancer. And she said, 2 years later, she said, Taff, I just buried my mom and I would like a reading to talk to her. And she said, let me tell you what I understand now. She said, don't ever hold back what the spirit world tells you, because she said, if you had not told me what my angel was telling you, she said, I would have had a nervous breakdown when my mother was diagnosed, and I would have never been able to support my mother fully and really be there for her. So she said, thank you.
About that. That is something, as a psychic medium, and, like family members that are, I remember one with my daughter. She had given a reading, and she was just randomly going through a hardware store, and she'd given a reading to a lady like a year before, maybe it wasn't even a year, maybe 6 months or so, and told her, said, I hate to tell you this, but a male in your life, very close to you, so it's like father, brother, husband, like that, is going to die in a motorcycle accident. I've been told, and I'm passing it along to you. And so anyway, long story short, she had told those males, and the brother, I think it was, got really hostile, says, oh, that woman, she's trying to put a curse on you, and all that crazy stuff. Well, sure enough, about 6 months later, her husband died in a car crash. But he had got himself all prepared after he had heard that. He had bought life insurance, he had bought all this and got everything squared away. So when this did take place, everything was okay with the family. I mean, the loss of a husband's horrible, but she saw her, just like say, I was with her, happened to be with her and walking through a hardware store, and she came over and gave her a big hug, and she says, thank you for telling me. I didn't know what to believe when you said that, but it actually did happen. I thought you needed to know. And so for the listeners, if you happen to interact with a psychic medium and it's something that happens a year or two later, please reach out to them, because that confirmation is really important, so they know they're on the right path and giving good information, because all psychic mediums kind of live and breathe by the confirmation that you give, either at the sitting or later, as you just described.
That's right. That's right. And, I think there are also times too, Terry, where, I have been told something, but it's not in a reading, and not when I sit down and then turn it over to the team. but times where I'm being given information, and then sometimes they will say to me, or I'll ask them, what do you want me to do with this? Do I need to tell them? And they'll say, not yet, or they're not ready, or we'll tell you when it's time. So I really feel like that the more tuned in we are to our spirit team and to the spirit world, they will navigate that for us. They'll tell us yay or nay, or how does that need to be done, especially if we set up the parameters and the rules in our own session like I do. I'm just going to tell you everything they say, and you do with it what you want to do with it. Yeah.
Right. Tommy?
Yeah, I was just thinking as you're talking about giving all the information, but in the very start of this, we talked about how some of the psychics run at about 50%. So I think maybe we should caution the newer people on how much they give in validation and such, right? Because you'd hate like heck to tell someone that their loved one's going to die and it doesn't happen, or vice versa, whatever. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, here's how I would put it about exit doors. This is just my experience with that. So because we have a soul contract, and the blueprint of that is our astrological chart, right? We actually set up potential exit doors for ourselves. I'm 48 and I've already had 5 in my life. Now, that is always a split-second decision that the soul has to make. I want to stay or I want to go. So the way that I phrase it in my readings is, if I see someone at a potential exit door, I always try to use the word potential, which means they can stay or they can go. And in my experience, I found that it's really important for the person I'm reading, if it's actually them, to know that they're at an exit door, because a potential exit door, because it helps them stay on Earth. So sometimes I can get a read on, is it a vehicular accident? Is it December? Is it 8 o'clock at night? Whatever. Or sometimes I don't get a read and I just say, listen, this is the time frame of this potential exit door. Just be really careful. And I've had people call me back and validate and say, Taff, that was bang on. Let me tell you, I knew the instant that I had to make that decision. And let me tell you what happened. And then we have our final exit doors, which means, we got our walk-in papers and we have to go. Excuse me. So we have to go there. But I think it's important to know the difference between the two. Yeah.
Yep. Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk a little bit about, because psychic mediums, I always tell people, the other side's high vibration and we in our body are kind of low vibration. So for the psychic medium, they've got to bring their vibration up, and the other side kind of lowers it down, meets in the middle. That's the name medium, right? And so when you connect to what we call dead people, it's not really dead, but we call it that, and versus a guide or an angel, or some people say it's the same thing, or even God, Jesus, whatever, whatever higher stuff. How does that feel different when you're talking to maybe I'm going to say a lower level, but a different vibratory level as you kind of move up, because we're human, so we think in order like that. But how does that feel different? How do you discern, I'm talking to an angel or I'm talking to a dead person?
Okay. First of all, excuse me, I've been channeling all day, so I'm losing my voice a little bit. Okay, let me ask you this so that I can answer the question appropriately. Mm-hmm. When you say a dead person, would that be someone who is just crossed over to the other side into the light, or is that someone who's an earthbound?
Yeah, and let me say that for the listeners. My understanding and my issue with this is, typically when people die, there's 2 different kinds of dead folks. There's actually 3, but we're going to call it 2. Like 85% or more go immediately into the light, and that's what Taffany's talking about on the other side. Right. And then there's like maybe 15% that don't. They stay in what I call the gray. Right. And it's kind of, if you look at a layer cake, we're kind of on top when we're alive. And then if you die, one layer down is your gray. And then if you go another layer down, it's kind of the dark, the further, if you will. and then, but if you go to the other side, you're off the cake and out the door. My question would be related first to the people that went over to the
Okay.
light. And then the second was, how do you identify those that are in the gray? And that's what goes bump in the night for the listener, what we would call ghosts. And so they are different vibratory, but I'll let Taffeny explain how it feels to her.
Okay. So the ones that are crossed over into the light, it depends on what level of light they are, because the way that the spirit world has explained it to me is we have 10 levels of light. And so the first level of light, they seem to be real concerned about Earth, and they'll show up in readings and they'll come through. Sometimes they have a difficult time communicating because they're just kind of learning the ropes and learning how to communicate. A lot of times, those particular souls that are new and having a difficult time, maybe an ancestor or another family member a lot of times brings them in and then sort of helps them communicate with me. So they don't ever feel heavy to me, but it's like I know that they're new. The other thing about them is when they're kind of newly crossed over or first level light, usually I feel an overwhelming emotion from them, because when I say I channel, I don't let them inhabit my body. They're outside of me, but whatever they feel, I feel. And it helps me really understand them. So sometimes I feel like if they die from a heart attack, I'll get chest pain. Sometimes if it's a vehicular accident, I may see them floating out of their body, or I may see the broken neck or what happened to them. So they convey to me a lot of different ways, but sometimes it can be very overwhelming emotionally when they come through. Sometimes it takes me a few moments to kind of get a grip on that emotion when they come through. So that's how I interact with the newer souls that are crossed over to first level.
Yeah,
Now,
I would concur with that. That's exactly what happens, because sometimes
okay,
they come through and their emotion is so strong,
yes,
it affects the medium where they start crying
oh yeah,
because you're tagged into them and they're literally crying because this person's giving this message. Yeah, so I agree with you 100%. And what you see on TV though is usually not that intense on purpose, because it is TV after all. But that really does happen in real settings. So
right.
let's talk about the people in the gray, the
Okay. Okay, so the people in the gray, I get two different reactions from them. The first reaction, if I'm going into a property or I'm doing a walkthrough, the first thing I always feel is I've got an elephant on my chest. It's hard to breathe. Immediately, an earthbound entity to me is extremely heavy. The second thing is sometimes they come towards me for help, and I always try to be very kind and loving and gentle and help them. And sometimes the ones who are very angry, who don't want my help, they run. They go somewhere else and they tend to avoid me. But and I don't mean this in any arrogant way whatsoever, please, because I'm a very humble person. But I kind of have to giggle because I have remote viewing and I have clairvoyance. So wherever they go in the house or the building, I see them whether I'm there or not, on that floor or in that room. So I kind of watch them, and then I just give them their space. And if they need some help, I help them. If they're actually haunting or attaching to a person, then we go in and handle business. And we have to bind them, unhook them, clear the person, clear the property, send them into the light, the next dimension, wherever they belong, seal them in so they can't come back, and ask that they be taken care of and given what they need. Yeah.
Yeah, it gets into almost a form of exorcism.
It does. It really does. And I'll tell you, usually I know pretty immediately. It's usually immediate. Like in my home, if the dead, the ones that are in the gray, enter into my field, my house's field, or in the house, I know almost immediately they're there because the energy shifts, because they're bringing with them all those lower vibrational frequencies that is part of the reason a lot of times that they just didn't cross over.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you do you believe, and I've got different views on this depending on the situation, do you believe a person can be forced across into the light, or is it a decision they must make on their own?
That's a really good point. Can I say both?
Yeah, say both.
Yeah, because I think that there's two things here. The first thing is we really are all one body, period, end of question. We make up the Christ consciousness. And so I feel like that as members of the same body, it's extremely important that we help each other, and what that soul can't do, I can step in and say, please, if they need forgiveness, okay, God, let's forgive them. If they need love, okay, let's give them love right now. Whatever they need to get to the light, I want to help give them that. So I think that's how we can affect that. Now, we can never, ever, ever violate their free will. We just can't. It's a God-given thing, and it's never okay to violate any person's free will, as far as I'm concerned. So, we're governed by universal laws, and then we have God laws, or God's laws. And so free will, it vibrates in both of those different levels. And so I believe that I can pray and pray and pray and open portals and do all the things. But if they don't want to go into the light, that's between them and their spirit team or the intercessor that comes in. And if they take them to a purgatory or a holding place or wherever, if they're not ready to go into the first level light, that's between them and their team. But, I believe that we always offer them the best. Even if they don't believe they deserve it, we believe they deserve it. And so we always offer them the very best. The rest is between them and God.
Yeah. Tom and I come from law enforcement background, so the whole free will thing is perfect until you start messing with other people, and then the cuffs come on, and you get taken right in between Tommy and I to the jail. And
right.
and I think something similar, at least in my line of work, it does happen occasionally where they violated so many other people's free will that they forfeit their free will for a period until they can get themselves properly adjusted, because we just can't have that. Them out running and running amok. And this is where you get into some pretty deep discussions about exorcisms and that sort of thing, and then the difference between the demonics and just the dead folks. I don't know if you've got an opinion on that or not.
Oh, I agree 100%. I agree 100%. And I do believe that in those unfortunate situations, they have to be bound. They have to be, or you're going to waste your time and energy fighting with them.
Yeah.
I think the spiritual cuffs are very appropriate in certain situations. And I also think one thing in particular, if we're not talking about a demonic or satanic, if we're talking about a real soul that's just extremely lost or very, very dark, I tend to look at it as a really ignorant person or a very, very spoiled child. And if you allow the behavior to continue, that soul's not going to learn anything. They're not going to grow. So saying 1, 2, 3, or I'm going to whip you 1, 2, 3. Well, that doesn't really work. And so sometimes we have to do whatever is very necessary for that soul's growth. And sometimes consequences are extremely necessary for a soul to learn. Yeah.
That's the Hank Williams Jr. Attitude adjustment.
That's right. Yeah, that's exactly right. And can I say one thing about consciousness when it comes to that I sort of explain to my clients is whenever you become more self-aware and more conscious and connected and live from your heart, no one has to tell you if you've messed up.
Mhm.
I know the minute I mess up, it doesn't feel right. I know I violated something and I need to get myself straight, back on track, do the forgiveness, do the clearing work, and get myself right. But I understand now the law of karma even more, and it's a universal law because karma is what we sow, we reap. What we put out, we get back. Thought, word, deed, same basic principles. However, what I realized is when a person is not self-aware and they're not conscious, they definitely need the karmic consequences because that's how we learn. Don't touch that stove. It's hot. And then they touch it and then they go, oh, okay, that stove is hot. I'm not going to touch it. Right. So I think that we have big scale of consciousness, but I also think that the karmic law is perfect and it stays in place and we move up and down that scale of consciousness, or hopefully we just evolve,
Yeah,
and we stay at a higher level of consciousness. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
When people come onto this earth plane, I always tell them that this is a place of contrast: hot, cold, salt, pepper, sweet, sour, that kind of stuff.
Right.
And those contrasts, which you just described, is exactly how we learn. And we put all our efforts together from being on the other side, and I can really go into this 3D place, and I can really do it. And then this is your test field. If coming to Earth, you get a special Cub Scout badge for coming here. This is tough. This is not
It's tough.
easy.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
people, you're a hero when you get back on the other side because you're like, oh wow, you went to Earth, yeah. It's like the Apollo 11 guys. They've got the jackets on with the big patch, says I've been on the moon. And you're like, so you kind of come back and you're like one of those badasses who did an Earth thing, maybe once, twice, or many, many times. And
Yes.
so that's kind of funny. Tommy, you got something?
Just picturing the badges.
Can I say one thing to that too? That reminded me of this. One of my brothers, I love my siblings very much. I'm one of 9, so there's a bunch of us.
Yeah.
And one of my brothers had just come out of rehab. He had been dealing with alcoholism, and he and I were having this very kind of intense spiritual conversation. And he said to me, he was talking about God and about punishment. And I said, John, I don't believe that God punishes us. I don't believe that. That's not how God works. We're set up in this system with all these laws. And he got it. He got exactly what I was saying. And we were talking about the law of karma. And he looked at me and he said, I get that. He said, but here's what I do believe. I believe that God will let you beat your own ass into submission. And I said, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely will. There's no question about that.
Right.
So yeah, and I just in the last few days I talked to a couple of people talking about a wrathful God. I said, well, if there is one, I haven't found it yet, because something that's pure love has a hard time being wrathful. There's a lot of wrathful people, but not God. And so things get carried out, and then there you are. You've got that situation. So let me go to this. How do you tell the difference between if you're talking to an angel versus what we call a dead person, on the other side?
Well, they have a higher vibration, of course. It's something that you just feel.
That feels how in your body or in your mind? How does that higher vibration translate where you go, yeah, that's an angel?
Okay. Well, first of all, I see them. Okay. So I know who I'm talking to. There are a lot of different branches of angels. You guys know that. I will tell you, I have seen and communicated with the seraphim maybe 3 times. And that one, the first time that I felt the energy field of a seraphim, I don't know why, but I felt like I wanted to fall on my knees and put my head down. It was not in, not that in fear or judgment or that I wasn't loved. It's not like that. It was more of the most powerful energy I've ever felt. And I don't know if that means the seraphim are at a higher level, so they're vibrationally closer to source energy or God energy. But boy, I felt that one all over. And that was really big. Powers and principalities are huge. When they come in a reading, which is not normal, so that doesn't happen every day. So when they come in, they have a very serious purpose, and they usually appear to me very, very large. Guardian and messenger angels, I always feel a lot of gentleness and love with them. They hold the vibration of light, and it's a very warm, sacred, comfortable feeling when an angel is present. So, even though souls feel good that are in the light, they don't feel like angels. There's a different vibration to that. And it's such a difference of vibration that you can close your eyes, and if you did psychometry where you could touch the energy field or whatever gift you choose to use, you could feel the difference literally between a soul and between an angelic being.
Mm-hmm. Now, have you ever had the chance to channel like Jesus or some other ascended master? And what do they feel like?
So sorry, emotion. Well, there's a reason that Jesus is called the Prince of Peace, for sure. He's a beautiful energy that is always full of love for everybody. When I do read, he stands, I always see him every morning on my right side. And this, I don't want to get off topic, but it kind of brings me to something I've also learned this year that the viewers might be interested in.
Okay.
So we all have a spiritual gatekeeper. And Jesus told me that he was my spiritual gatekeeper. And that's why I see him always on my right side. But I also learned this year that we also have an ancestral gatekeeper. And they usually stand on our left side. And, it doesn't necessarily have to be Jesus. It can be whatever spiritual essence or deity or saint, the Blessed Mother, whoever, Muhammad, whatever the consciousness is. And they act as real protectors for us. We really don't understand how protected we are. We are super protected. I mean, you've almost got to run out in the middle of a train to get hit down here because we're so protected, and they warn us, 1,500 times before we do something. I don't think you should do that. I really think you should go a different direction, So Jesus is really powerful. The Blessed Mother, she actually answered 4 prayers for me last year that were like miracles. She's always gentle and loving. I would say love always comes through from, should I say the spiritual hierarchy or the saints or the...
Oh, I lost you there.
I would say that they have a different vibration also, other than angels and regular souls. They're like a soul that has had thousands of lifetimes, and they can hold the vibration of love and compassion, but at the same time, they have all of this knowledge to give us, to guide us, to shift our perspectives and help us understand. But they also have the ability to be very firm and give us what we need at that point. Does that make any sense to you?
Yeah, I get it.
I don't know if that explained it or not very well.
Well, I tell people, if you actually do get the Jesus experience, I call it that, that it is like he is talking to you and you're the only person in existence, just one-on-one and complete total admiration for you. so interested in everything you think, do, act. I mean, the whole bit. It's kind of an overwhelming presence, where you just kind of want to melt into it. And if you look in the eyes, that takes you away. It's yeah, it's really something. And so a lot of people will say, "Yeah, I was talking to Jesus." Well, I can just say, if you really were, probably wouldn't be saying it exactly like that. It's, it's a whole different experience. And,
It
but
is. And can I say one thing about
sure,
that? Is this okay if I just add one thing?
sure.
Only because of a recent experience that I had, where usually I communicate with Christ and it's a lot of telepathic mostly,
Yep.
but I understand the experience that you're talking about, because I don't know if it's an integration. I don't know if it's a healing. I don't know if it's a merging. But I got up about a month or two ago and it was really rainy outside. And I didn't really want to go to church. I didn't want to get out in it, had to go to the grocery, all the stuff. And I kept hearing this voice say, "Get up, get ready, you're going to church." And every time I would falter, the voice would say, "Go, go." So I went to church and I love my church. I love people. It's pretty awesome, but it was just kind of normal, nothing different. So it was a good service. And then I went to the grocery, got everything, got in the car, and on the way home, I saw Jesus on my right in the passenger seat. And he said to me, "I want you to sit with me and I want you to sit in my energy." And over and over and over, it was almost like a mantra.
Mhm.
He said to me, "I will never let you down. I will never let you down. I will never let you down," all the way home. And something in my heart was healed. And I cried the whole way home. And it was one of the most powerful experiences. And I'm a medium that
Right.
I've ever had. And so I truly believe that he holds the memory or the vibration or the knowledge or the knowing or whatever it is of who we really are. And it's his job to bring us back to our true origin. And I think that we come down here and we forget and our consciousness drops. And then I think moments like that with Christ or whoever raises our awareness and our consciousness back to who we really are and what we really vibrate at when we're up in the light realms. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I remember being I just had a question one time that I needed to ask. And so I kind of shifted into where I needed to be and popped in on a past spiritual leader. I'm just going to leave it at that. And I saw him sitting there and I said, "Hey dude, what's happening?" And he's, "Terry, good to see you. I haven't seen you in a long time. How's the wife? How's the kids? All this kind of stuff." And I said, "Perfect, perfect. How's things going with you?" "Great, great." It was a great conversation. And then, so then I asked the question, and he goes, "Yeah, I know what you're talking about." And I said, "I just kind of want to bounce it off of you. I think I got the right answer, and I feel that's the way to go." And he said, "What you were thinking to do, yes, that was the correct answer. If you'd have done what your urge was to do, then you would have inadvertently embarrassed somebody, in this particular case, who needed to be in a kind of a position of authority, and it would have really embarrassed them, but you held back. You took another route, and that was the proper way to go." I said, "Well, just sometimes want to talk it over." Said, "Been a while since I've seen you. Just thought we'd, chit chat a little bit." And he goes, "Yep. Well, you know where I'm at?" I said, "I know where you're at." And I said, "You know where I'm at?" He goes, "Absolutely." I said, "Well, we'll be in touch." And then poof, out we were out. And so I tell people it doesn't have to be this movie IMAX thing. You can actually have some tremendous amount of humor on the other side, tremendous amount of
Right.
humor. And they're laughing, they're carrying, they think we're silly sometimes. We're just absolutely in this whole patent place and we're running through the soap opera. and they think it's silly, but they know a lot of them have already been here. They get it, and we get so wound up in our daily events, and all the world's coming to an end, and all this is happening. And well, as I tell people, I know how this ends. We win. That's how it ends, and we'll be fine. So, but it's fascinating nonetheless. So, Tommy, do you have something?
I just it's an amazing experience to hear as we explain all this to folks, the different ways this is working. Because most formal religious trainings, I don't think ever talk anything about this. So I know when my mother passed, I had a conversation the night before she left, and her comment was, "Why did I never hear this before?" That's kind of a shame. But I think you have to lower the vibration so you can learn the lessons. If you're at the higher vibration, you might skip over them.
Ooh, Tom, that's a good point. That really needed to be said. Absolutely.
There you go.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's great.
Well, do we want to do a little demo about how you connect and run Tommy and then run me or something? And if you can, as you shift into different levels, maybe you can tell the listener, okay, I'm going to shift into whatever. I'm going to talk to first dead folks, or they're not really dead, but you know what I mean. And then I'm going to talk to guides, or then I'm going to talk to angels. I'm going to talk to God, or whatever the case may be. So they can kind of see the different rhythm, because I think there's always a rhythm with different levels, and the rhythm becomes significantly different. It's more, to me, it's more choppy at the lower levels and gets smoother and smoother as you go up, and just kind of flows, like the ocean. So it's nice.
Okay. It was interesting that you mentioned Tommy first, because that's where I felt drawn. So as I look at the screen, Terry, you're on my left, Tom, you're on my right. And so I felt immediately drawn to you. And it's interesting you mentioned your mom, because it's like, the interesting thing is I saw mom and dad, though, side by side. They're side by side. And I saw them, and I saw a little spirit that we need to talk about here in a minute. And then I saw your angels behind them. And your mom was saying that she kept saying, "It's okay, it's okay, it's okay." And she was saying that, okay, let me say it like this, Tommy. I don't know that they normally stand side by side. So they're standing side by side, and she keeps saying it's okay. And what she's reiterating to me, the feeling she's giving me, is that whatever issues mom and dad had, it's all gone. She told me that she's telling me now that they have moved to the next level. And she is saying that it's been hashed out. She's also saying that why this is important and why they're coming through is, well, number one, it's Christmas. She said they wanted to say hi and they love you. Number two, let's see if she can explain this in detail, because she said that whenever we pass, basically, and things are left undone, it affects the DNA bloodline here on the earth. And what she's showing me is basically like, because they've buried the hatchet, if you will, your DNA is like cleared or cleaned, or it's all cleaned up. So she says, like, you can go forward now, and you're not, carrying the sins of the fathers, of what they did. I understand that now. So she's saying, you're not carrying their sins anymore. You're free. And she's saying, Merry Christmas, that they got it together over there so you could have your freedom. She's also saying that this coming year, you're going to come into the word, I'm trying to say it word for word, God-given abilities, because she says they belong to you. It is God-given, but you're a part of God. So those abilities belong to you. And she is saying that she is looking forward to this, because she's saying that her and your dad really want to start communicating with you. This is very important, because your mom is laughing and saying, Tommy, you're not getting any younger. And so you don't need to be held down by familial past things that have occurred. And she says that some of these things have made their way energetically into your life and then took root or sprouted and caused problems. And she's saying that she's showing me like burning a garden down. She's saying we're gonna clear that, we're gonna kibosh that. She is saying that her and your dad are gonna come through in your dream time first. And she says they want to show you that they're okay. So that they may come in together or standing side by side. And she says that you have a mate around the corner, but you've got two abilities that really need to burst open first, she's saying, before you meet this mate, because she's saying that this mate is extremely intuitive. And she says that if you grow and the mate's down here, you won't merge. If the mate's already up here intuitively and you're here, you won't merge. You'll miss each other kind of. She says that this next mate is about syncing up. And she says that in this life, you've never really had the experience of merging or being almost one body, where you're the right half, she's the left half. And she is saying that in this life, it's important for you to have that. And she says it's soul contracted for you to have that before you leave. Yeah. Yeah. She says, she shows me like all of these women, and she's saying you're going to be famous. So it must be the podcast, or it must be some of your work, Tom. Well known. She says well known. But she says that this one female will rise up out of the crowd, out of all of them, and she will present herself in such a way that she's saying she will be humble, she will be loving, she will be kind, she will be gentle. And she just said, Tommy, you need gentle in your life. You need that, because she says that you've always had to, the word she's using is harden up and deal with hard asses. That's the word she's using. And so she's saying that you need fluffy, you need fluff, you need sweetness and kindness. And she says that that's what this mate is bringing you, because she's saying you've got so many wounds and scars emotionally, like she's showing me in your electromagnetic field, just some of these wounds and scars that need to be healed. And then the words that she's using is like, that this female will be a healing balm, is the word that she's using. And I'm saying to her, boy, you really better deliver, because this female sounds perfect and great for Tommy. And she just gave me the thumbs up and said, trust me. And she says, I know my son. I love my son. I know what he needs. She's also saying that this is her way, the exact word she's using, this is her way of repairing broken bridges.
I understand. Yeah, pretty cool.
Okay, one other thing, Tommy. This is more like from your angels, and it's more of a telepathic. I think this came up last time you and I talked, but I'm picking up London again.
Okay.
I'm seeing international travel. I'm seeing you speaking at events that are not just in the US, but worldwide. Your angels are saying that, okay, here's the way they're putting it. Like, everybody's got to catch up consciously. And so there are people who have been really, really, really scientific minded and black and white, that haven't put science and spirit together, which makes the whole, right?
Yep.
And they're saying that one of your main jobs, Tommy, is to take the science people that are not in levels of government or military that understand this, like remote viewing, quantum physics, things like that. They're saying your job is to work with first responders or different types of people that have got the science part. They don't have the spiritual part, and they don't understand the energy that links them together. And so your angels are saying they're lacking part of the half, and they need that. And your angels are saying that's why you've got to go out. They keep saying you'll be sent out. There will be requests for you. You're an excellent teacher, and I can attest to that at Terry's. You were funny, and you intelligent, and you're this plethora of knowledge and information. And they're saying that it's like all systems go is the word they just said. And you'll feel that, and that's going to be next year around springtime, March, April. Yeah. And you're going to be like, okay, somebody just flipped the lever and all systems just lit up. So these two, they're circling back to the two abilities that are going to pop open next year. I think they're making a reference to mom and dad again, and how just all the crap. I feel like it's like if you have a door, what they're showing me is if you have a door that needs to come open, that maybe is on the ground and it needs to open up, but you've got boxes and boxes and boxes and boxes of junk stacked on top of it, you can't get that door open, right? Mm-hmm. So mom and dad burying the hatchet, coming together, they just cleaned all the boxes off of that door, and now that door can rise. And one of them is going to be naturally, they're saying. The other door is going to take some prying open, and then they're pointed to Terry. So I think Terry's going to help with that. Also, it has to do with your brain wiring, and they were showing me a biofeedback machine. So I think your one ability is going to pop open first. The other one looks like there might be some rewiring with brain, cognition, consciousness, all of that. And then it looks like the other one comes open.
That makes sense. That's what I've been working on the last couple of years with the technology. So that would make sense.
Really? Oh, wow. Okay. Awesome.
I've been telling a lot of that, so I was really happy for a confirmation from somebody else. That should have sounded real familiar.
Did it?
It did.
Awesome.
Yes, it did.
Well, you know what I always say, Terry, the truth is the truth is the truth.
Absolutely.
And most of the time we line up with other readers, right? We line up because we're all looking at the same amount of truth, and then we just got to bring it through.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, Terry. So let's look at you. Yeah. Okay. So the first thing that I see is really large angels, one on either side of you. And earlier I didn't say it, but your daughter, Leanne, that's passed away, even when we were kind of waiting on Tom before we started filming, I saw her behind you. And so she's been here. And then I see the two large angels on either side of you. And really what they do, they're telling me, is they just handle the word that I'm hearing is the energetic riffraff, so that you don't have to waste your time clearing and all that. The other thing that they're showing me is that there is another really large angel, and they're telling me that angel is like your guide. They're telling me that one parts the waters. Because they're telling me it doesn't accomplish a whole lot if you show up down here to do a particular job and you have 15 obstacles between you and doing that job. There's no point in that. You don't have to work with your abilities. You don't have to come into your abilities. You just are, or you've just arrived at that, right? So where they're saying where some people would need 15 blockades or obstacles to perfect their abilities and to jump through the obstacle course to strengthen their spiritual muscles, you don't really need that. But they're saying because life is life and there's 5 different rules of energy, and energy can move things into our paths and block us when we didn't really sign up for it and we didn't create it, right? And so they're saying that that's what that angel is parting the Red Sea, parting the waters so that you can move forward. Then they're saying that they have been holding you back a little bit, because you're ready to go. You're ready to move forward. Now, they're not holding you back because of you. They're holding you back because of the consciousness of the planet. And they're saying that once that grid clicks into place in April, so they're affirming that, they're saying that people's minds are going to light up like a light bulb. And when that happens, Terry, they're going to take their hands off of you so that you can move forward at your own pace again. There's been a little bit of a time delay, and I know what they're talking about. I won't go all into that down the rabbit hole while we're filming on this, but there's been a 3-year time delay that's also affected things. So they're saying that things are going to start happening fairly rapidly. They give me a couple of months. They give like May, September, and then December. And they're saying that you're going to be traveling too. You and Tommy are going to meet at certain places, meet up, but then fly off or go in whatever directions y'all need to accomplish the goals, because they're saying that you and Tommy have worked together in a lot of lifetimes before. This isn't new. And they're saying peanut butter and jelly. So what that tells me is you guys are totally meant to work together, totally in sync, make a great package. And they're saying it's just easy between you guys. They're also saying, Tommy, you may not realize this, but you and Terry are pretty telepathically in sync. There's a level of understanding that you guys have that's more than just speaking the English or the police language or whatever that is. They're saying it's a telepathic link and you understand each other. They're referring to Terry as a big brother. So I feel like maybe that's what he's been in another lifetime to you. So they're saying there's a lot of trust and there's honesty and integrity there. So they're saying that these movements next year, Terry, in those months are really important because, okay, they're showing me like those 3 time periods is almost like hurdles, but not in a difficult way. But when you go from your first hurdle to your second hurdle, it's almost like you're gaining momentum. And then when you go from your second to your third, there's way more momentum. So by the end of the year next year, I'm hearing something like a film or a TV deal for y'all. And it's all going to come together between, I think, September and December. And this is really important because they're saying that you're going to have like an educational program. And this is an educational program, but they're saying that people are actually going to want to be in the audience, that they're not just going to want to watch a podcast for an hour, which is great, or 30 minutes, but they're going to want more time with some of these brilliant people that you guys have been interviewing, because they're saying you pick the best of the best. You look through the box of pearls and you pick out the one that you believe is the very best for your show. You guys do. So they're saying that this is really important also because energy is energy is energy. And so when you bring these people in and this audience is there, they will start, because of the grid, again, being in place by April, they will start actually raising their frequency to the frequency of y'all and the person that's speaking and bringing through information. And they're saying it's sort of like, and there's, this is pretty funny. This is not negative. This is a positive. They're saying it will feel like a Pentecostal church on steroids. Okay. Those are their exact words.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah. So it's like people will sync up. And they're also saying that you will bring through you and Tommy will bring through people that have the ability to heal, right? So we know that's an ability in one of the spiritual gifts. And we also know that there are people, I didn't know this till the last couple of years, the fishes and loaves is a spiritual gift, being able to manifest and multiply. So they're saying that people are going to want to be in this energy field and be touched and be moved and be changed and understand and learn and grow. And then they're saying, and then people are going to ask you, build a school, make a school. We want to learn this. We want to understand this. They're using the words hands-on. People are going to want to come and be hands-on. So there's a lot of decisions to make from summer to December of next year. And really, they're saying after the doors blow open, the sky's the limit. It's really up to you guys what you want to form and what you feel like you really want to take on.
Gotcha. That sounds like a mouthful for sure.
Sounds like some of our conversations this past year.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's very much in line, and I have been told about the television film thing 4 years ago by another psychic medium. So they said that is in line for sure, and so everything lines up. Just I'm giving you feedback because clearly we get a chance to get a lot of readings, and so I would say for both Tom and I, what you've just said is absolutely in line with what we're getting. Like you say, we're all reading the same material. Some people just a little quicker, a little faster readers, but what we're getting is the same stuff. So I think that's fascinating for the listener to understand. As you go from one psychic medium to another, they're going to say the same thing in a different way. So you got to be a good sitter, take notes, think about it, get a little cerebral, and it'll all kind of come together. So was there any family members that needed to say anything at this time?
Okay, let me look. I have to tell you two things on that. One other thing that they told me is they said, Terry, you're going to move.
Well, I'm in a pretty communist state.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. They said you're going to move, and I don't know if Tom's going to move down and you're going to move up or what this is going to be, but they showed me more of a common location between you and Tom that the filming would happen, or it would be easier for y'all. Mm-hmm. The other thing that I heard to explain is I don't normally channel that fast, mm-hmm. but the energies were pretty intense, and I know we're running on limited time, so I just let it pour through. But I do tell people it's great if you want to record it, because you can't write fast enough, right. And there are going to be things that come through, and it may not make sense to you at that time, but 6 months later, you may go, oh, that's what they meant when they said that, right? Agreed. And so I think it's great to have that recorded in your archives and to go back and kind of reflect and see how things have occurred. The other thing, okay, so when you said any family members, I saw a female and a male, but I felt like that this female had to do with your father who's getting ready to pass. Okay. So his mother. Yeah. So is this your biological father?
No. I mean,
this is your adopted father?
My biological father passed about 60 days ago, and this is my adopted father, the one I grew up with.
Okay, so you just told me exactly who's here then, because this female is the mother of your adopted father that's passing. I didn't know who the male was, but that's your biological father.
Yes, you're talking to my grandmother.
Yes, but it's really interesting to me that there's no, well, you're the tie. Okay, that makes sense, because I was going to say that there's no blood tie between your adoptive grandmother and your blood father. But when I started to make that statement, they said, oh, Terry is the tie. He is the tie. And so let me see if she would like to say anything.
I I miss her peach pie, if that means anything.
That's awesome. Well, she was saying, don't worry. Don't worry. We have him. She says, you know this. This is interesting, Terry. She made like a reference to, now that your fathers are over, you're next in line. But then I saw her like pushing her hand up against your chest, like you've got a long time period. So she's kind of holding you back, even though you're the next generation in line.
Right.
You've got a lot longer to live. And she's really funny. Your grandmother kind of cracks me up because she showed me like the telomeres on your DNA, and she keeps like stretching them. Like she's trying to expand them.
Mhm.
And she's saying that you've got a lot to get done. And she's saying that you need to understand that your soul contract, the word she's using is open-ended. So there's not a destiny point of death for you. There's not a date of death for you. She says this is not normal. It tends to be abnormal when it comes to soul contracts. But she says that, now these are her words. I'm trying to say it word for word. She says you can't rush perfection, and that you're down here to do a certain job, and that you will have your telomeres extended to support your physiological DNA structure, and that you are open-ended on time, because she says the last thing that you need is pressure of a time clock to get the job done, because these are pretty big things to get accomplished. It's not small things. So she says she wants you to know that. She says that she's around you a lot and you feel her from time to time. And she says that she just kind of moves her love towards you, just kind of wishes it towards you, and you know that, and she's supporting you. Your dad, your biological father, is saying that he's very, very proud of you. I kind of understand. He's saying that he's joining your team. He's joining your army. And he showed me a sword. And I think he's saying, look, I'm going to keep the riffraff. I'm going to help keep all that away, so that you can continue to bring about the things that you need to bring about. And so I just kind of want to dig a little bit on that, if that's okay, because of that statement is very interesting. And so I'm saying to your dad, okay, well, what riffraff are you keeping at bay? Just curious. And he says that his is not so much the ones he's dealing with, satanic, demonic energies. These are people who would interfere in your purpose. And he says, Tom doesn't need to take any more hits, and you don't need any hits, and you don't need anything to slow you down. And he says that there are people on this planet that don't want consciousness to occur. And so because they feel if other beings are not conscious, they have control and power over them. And he says, for whatever reason, that's a thrill to them. Your dad's really kind of funny. He's just kind of upfront, honest, and to the point and funny. And so he says that these people are going to be few and far between, but because you're really ramping up over the next year, with y'all's podcast going on a larger scale, he's saying that these people will still be interfering in the conscious development. And it won't always be like that. So what they've told me is, because the old grid structure is disintegrating, the people that won't shift and the people that are still tied to the third density consciousness, they will eventually get off the planet. They will leave, because the rule is shift or get off the planet right now. So they won't always be there to interfere. But what they've told me is we're going to see the peak of our death wave on the planet next year and in 2025. And it will take 1 to 2 years for the old 3D grid to finish disintegration. So how does that apply to these people that are interfering? Well, they're tied to the 3D consciousness, right? And so they don't want people to go into 4D consciousness. So you've got about a year or two to deal with them that might interfere or try to kibosh the plan. And your dad is saying, you know, his job is to move them out of the way. He says, for instance, one of them may want to come sabotage the next step. And all of a sudden, that person just comes down with the flu and can't get out of the bed for 10 days. So, yeah. So he's saying that he's actually allowed to not harm, but to push people out of the way as necessary to clear the path.
Well, he's my 1078. That's police talk for assisting an officer, because he was a retired master sergeant with state police. So,
oh, wow. Okay.
It's all law enforcement. How about that?
Okay. How about that? That's awesome. No wonder he showed me the sword,
Yeah,
you know, like and that he was joining your team. So that's really cool.
I got his his oldest son. I'm the youngest, but his oldest son is also retired state police. And
wow. Yeah, he said it's in the blood.
Yeah, and there's no question. It's like a grape stain. It's hard to get out of the shirt.
Yeah.
It's like that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
That's awesome.
any chance for grandkids coming up? Anybody talking about that yet?
Oh my gosh. I forgot to tell Tom about that little soul that was here.
Okay, go ahead.
And then Terry, I'll come back to your grandson. It's a grandson. Now there's a little girl that wants to come in too, but we'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, so Tommy, okay, I can't believe I forgot that. Your mom and dad had this baby or this infant child with them. And it felt like that this child belonged to you, but didn't come through. And I don't want to ask you any too personal questions, because I know that, you know, we're filming. But it looks like there was maybe one opportunity where it wanted to come in and it couldn't get through, or it couldn't get in. And so I'm asking your mom and dad, why did they bring the child through today? And they're telling me that it's going to reroute itself. It's going to come in through another source that's very close to you, and there's going to be a very powerful soul bond with that child.
Okay, I'm not having kids at this age, I don't think.
No. No, it's not you. It's coming in through, oh, wait a minute. It's close to you, Tommy. It's either family or friend. It's pretty darn close to you. And I'm thinking it's a boy. I'm trying to see, like, other than his energy field, I'm trying to see. It's a boy. It's a boy. I'm asking your mom, what's the time period? And I see 2 to 3 years. And this child is going to have this just intense connection to you. Like, he'll want you to pack him around. I see him laying his head on your chest, and he stretches his little arm out, and he's going to pat you a lot. He's so sweet. He'll pat you. He's very comforting. He loves you so much. I mean, this is like going to be like a child you never had. So Tommy, you don't have any children in this life, correct?
We've had this conversation. No blood children, but I have not legally adopted, but they've become my family.
Okay. It's interesting. I mean, he will be like yours, just from another person at another time later, and may be like a grandson or something like that to you, or close friend of the family or something. But you'll know, oh, he was mine that didn't get to come through. You'll feel that. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So that's important. So that's so funny.
I don't do diapers though, so I don't know how this is going to work out.
Well, your dad just said congratulations, Tom. So,
It's a
yeah,
boy. Can we buy you
Yeah.
a cigar?
it's a boy. Yeah, that's funny. Okay, so Terry, okay, this is interesting because I saw a boy first, but then I saw a girl. And that threw me for a minute because there could be an opportunity for two.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm asking your dad or your grandmother if they want to talk about this. Your grandmother just said you need to let them come through, them, plural. And she says that oh wow. I hope I'm getting this right, but it made me really emotional for you. They showed me Leanne, and it feels a little bit like a soul fragment of her or something.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, I understand that our soul can split, right? And go into different bodies and different dimensions. And that from what I've been taught, our generation runs around 6 to 8% soul emanation. Now, ours is higher because we've integrated more of our soul essence. But the younger generations coming in are somewhere between 10 and 12%, maybe up to 15 soul emanation. Jesus was 100%. So if that kind of gives us a scale, that's how they've explained it. So this little girl is either a soul thread or a fragment or something of Leanne. And I don't know if that means part of Leanne's soul thread will end. I don't know if that means part of Leanne's essence will integrate with that soul, but it kind of feels that way, Terry.
Yeah, I think so. I think twins are in the offering. One boy,
Okay.
one girl.
Yeah,
Fraternal
that's
twin.
what I'm.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's what I'm seeing. So yeah, and the little boy, he's a shoe-in. I mean, I hear he's coming. He's got his marching orders. That one is set for sure. The little girl looks like this has kind of come up over the last year and a half or something, and feels like been negotiated in spirit world and is getting all kind of worked out. So that's awesome.
That'll be good. Yep. You got to have an even number because when you go to Disneyland, you got to have somebody to ride with.
That's right. That's great. Yep. So you're both getting grandkids.
Oh, yay.
Yay.
That's it. That's perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I
Yep.
actually have one now.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's
That's
good.
awesome.
Well, Taffeny, I appreciate this. I think that, people will get a good sense of how a reading looks like, and especially from a top psychic medium and what it should look like. So if they end up somewhere else and it doesn't look much like what you just demonstrated, they'll be able to go, I think I maybe need to search somebody else out, and maybe I need to get on Taffany's list because that was amazing. And I can tell, as I said, confirming from other sources that what Taffeny just presented was very, very accurate. So, and I'm in a position to be able to do that. So that's extremely appreciated. And we're going to start to wrap this thing up. So, Taffeny, do you have anything you want to leave the listeners, viewers?
Yeah, I do. Thank you. It's totally like you and I are pinging each other's brains. This whole time we've been talking. One last thing that I would like to say, first of all, is thank you guys both so much for the opportunity. The podcast is awesome. I'm so grateful to all the listeners, and everybody will be in my prayers for protection and peace and love and consciousness. So I'll be lifting everybody up. The other thing that I would like to drop a line to say is I'm hoping to have the next book to the editor in spring. And we're looking at maybe Balboa Press. And I have been working with 5 women who all lost their sons. And we're also working with, we brought on a really good astrologer, Thea.
Okay.
And so Thea is actually taking the son's soul or astrological charts and the mother's, putting them together, called an astrological synastry. And it's showing how when the sons left the earth, how that affected the mother. For some, it catapulted them into their spiritual purpose. And so I've channeled for these women for years and got to know their sons on the other side and help them make the connection and heal. So I'm really excited about this book because I know so many people have lost their children. Terry, I know you lost Leanne, and I know that, and I don't want to sound negative when I say this, I know a lot more people are going to be passing, whether it's, children or family or friends or just whomever, because of the movement of things. And so I think that this book will bring a lot of peace, a lot of clarity, a lot of understanding, on a soul contract and astrological level. So I'm just asking for prayers from everybody. And hopefully the book will be out, crossing our fingers, next year.
What's the name?
We're kicking it around. We've talked about The Glass House. We've talked about several different titles and subtitles. The thing that we learned about the editors is we can go to the editors with a title and a subtitle, and a lot of times they change it on us. Right. So that remains to be seen till we work with the editors. But I'm pretty excited about it, and I think it's going to help a lot of people, which is awesome. It'll bring a different level of consciousness to what we call grief, and I think it's going to bring a lot of understanding to bridge that gap. So I'm looking forward to it.
And if people want to get a hold of you, what's the best way to do that?
My cell number. They're welcome to text me, is great. I do texting, or they're welcome to call me and leave me a message. But I live in the country on a farm. I'm very humble, down to earth. I work Tuesday through Friday, and so they're welcome to just text me, and I'll get back to them just as soon as I can.
And I can tell the listeners, I've been to Taffany's house, and it's a historical house. It has a whole bunch
Right.
of history attached to it. I don't know that I want to tell everybody. I don't want them all showing up at your house, but she is, she actually has bears running around in the woods there.
For real.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah, for real. Yeah, that's a real bear. So
Yeah.
it's not the Wizard of Oz. So
No.
it is the real bear. And so, yeah, she is way out in the boonies. Tom thinks I'm out in the boonies, but Taffeny, you've been to my house, and we're not out in the boonies near compared to you where you're at.
Yeah, I'm way out in the sticks, because I had to drive to the library to the nearest town so I could get some good internet reception tonight. So yeah, but it's peaceful. It's quiet, it's peaceful, and you can definitely hear God there. That's what I would say about being that far out. It's silent, and you can definitely hear God.
Yeah, absolutely. Tom, you get some wrap up on this?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you. It's always amazing to hear the stories, hear what comes through. I can, like Terry, validate what you've said tonight. And I would tell the audience, get on the wait list, because I know there is a wait list to get an appointment with Taffeny, but it's worth the wait.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate you so much for the opportunity.
And we appreciate having you. And again, this is related to our 50th episode. And so it'll be a special that'll come out. So it's going to be a little longer than normal, obviously. But that's what it's all about, because these two ladies that we have brought in, they are just extraordinary in what they do. And actually, I'll have to tell the other lady, which was Danny Jo Butler, you guys validated each other, just so you know. So,
awesome.
very
That's
cool.
great.
Yeah, very cool.
I hope to meet her.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll get you hooked up. No doubt about it. So we'll close out here, and I'll say, for all of us here at the Metaphysical Mysteries, man, we really appreciate you sticking with us, and we'll be back soon with another exciting episode. So to all of you, have a great day and enjoy 2024.
Thanks. Bye, guys.